I'm Nick Wright, and you're watching the Sports Horn.
The Sports Horn is here at Kauffman Stadium for Royals Twins. We actually ran across a very special guest here today. Chris?
Nick Wright. Nick Wright from 610 Sports. We've been hollering at it for a while. We finally got you here, Nick. Appreciate you coming out to Kauffman.
And one thing I've always wanted to ask you, Nick, what fan base drives you the craziest? Which fan base calls in, gives you the most crap, to where you just wish you never had to feel the call from him again? And if you say Kansas, I'm not going to hate you.
If you say MU, we won't hate it either.
Well, I won't. So. I mean, none of them that I don't want to field calls from. I think that Kansas fans give me the most flack because I think there's a belief that I don't like KU, which I don't think is accurate. What's true is that I can't. If you're from the Midwest like I am, and like you guys are, and you're not a KU fan, the odds are you've never had a championship. You know what I mean? So you're a Royals fan or a Chiefs fan. You're Royals and Chiefs fans, and so you know what I mean? You haven't had a championship those in the last quarter century for the Chiefs in 40-plus years. And if you're a Missouri fan, you haven't had one either. And so because of that, I think Kansas fans have, and maybe it's deserved, a bit of a sense of entitlement.
Right.
And so to me, whenever, I can talk crap on Frank Haith or on Gary Pinkel. Right. And Missouri fans, I don't think, get that upset. Kansas fans tend to think their basketball program's above reproach, and so when I criticize Bill Self or how he handled Josh Selby or whatever it is, Kansas fans, I think, not all of them, but a lot of them think that I'm hating on them or that I'm a hater of the school, which I don't think is fair. But I'm not I certainly don't. I mean, I root for all the local schools because it's good for the show. Right. But I'm not a fan of any of the local schools because my squad's Syracuse. But I'd say Kansas fans on average give me the most trouble, if you will.
Now, with us being the Sports Horn, and we're basically the Wayne's World of sports, if you will. We started out of the basement. We're trying to go places, and we're starting to get our foot in a few doors. So, what advice could you give us as a small sports show, really trying to make it? And what could you say to our fans to help us along the way?
Well, I would say, what you guys are doing is the advice I would give for people that want to do radio. What I always tell them is, hey, go to Podomatic. It's just a random website that hosts podcasts. That's free. I was like, go to Podomatic and start your own podcast. You guys have done your own thing, with the television side of things, just hosting via Facebook, whatever medium you choose, hosting your own TV thing. Because what's most important is to get the reps and the practice so you feel comfortable. So if and when you do get an opportunity, it's not your first time on camera. It's not your first time doing something. You know what I mean? So you guys develop a rapport. You guys have a chemistry between you, and you guys have, the confidence in your own voice, in your own style. So the first time you're on camera is not new to you. So I would say that. Plus, you do a good job of, from what I see, publicizing what you're doing via Twitter or Facebook and getting the word out. And, that way, when you do get, a break or get a big opportunity, you're ready for it. So I think you guys are, in that regard, doing it right.
Well, thank you for that very much. Now, being as we're out here at Kauffman Stadium today, you talked a lot today on your radio show about the Royals. Do you feel like Eric Hosmer is carrying this baseball team?
I think he's their best player. When the team's got the second worst record in the AL, so I don't know if anybody's carrying him because they're not playing great. But, they'd be in rough shape without him.
Okay, are you buying in to because for years we've been hearing, the Royals have all these young and up-and-coming players. Do you really feel like now, because it's starting to be publicized out there is a lot of young, good pitching coming up. There's a lot of young, good bats coming up. Do you feel like the Royals rise to contend? Yeah, are we getting there?
I think they'll be. I think that 2013, 14, 15, this team should contend for division.
Remember that, guys?
I think they should. I think they should start. This year, be a 500. Right, you've seen some of it, and be a competitive team next year. But I think 2013, 14, 15, the team should be able to potentially win a division.
Well, we did have a question. We did have a question on our Facebook page for you specifically, Nick, and this comes from Brian Warhane. He wants to know, at this point in the season, who is the Royals, All-Star player? Because is Aaron Crow have a chance? That's kind of
right. Well, if Crow is the new closer, then I think he's got a chance. I think Crow probably was the best pick a week ago too, but the thing is relievers don't make the All-Star game unless they're closers.
Right.
So Crow, I think, has a shot. I think Gordon's got a shot. I think maybe Hosmer's got a shot, but first base is pretty stacked in the American League.
Well, now, Nick, moving on from that, as you know, our show is mainly Mizzou fans and Kansas City Chiefs fans.
Right.
I mean, I would say that's, the base of all of our fans. Now, with that being said, I have to ask you about the Kansas City Chiefs this year. Right. I have to ask you, mainly, we know
hypothetically, that is.
Exactly. we know the NFL lockout's going on right now. Do you see this thing getting done? Do you see free agency starting soon? And are the Chiefs going to be in it to play as far as maybe picking up? Now, obviously, we're not going to pick up a wide receiver probably because of Johnny Baldwin. What position?
Maybe pick up a nose tackle, I would say. There'll be a season. I don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to get worked out. And if there's a season, there'll be free agency.
Right.
Now, it might only be it might be a wild 72 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It might be very short, but there'll be some free agency. If I'm running the team, what I look at via free agency is nose tackle, because you drafted Jarrell Poe, who might be a good player in a few years.
I was excited about that
pick of the draft.
Right.
You can't
He's going to be raw.
step in. Right. So you need a nose tackle. Also, a lot of people think this team needs offensive line help, which maybe they do. If they do, then maybe sign a right tackle who, if Barry Richardson can't get it done, is an established veteran. Not a great player, but an established veteran.
Right. Now, were you a fan of the draft this year?
I thought
they did good. I think they did good too.
I didn't think tackle was a big need. The only pick that didn't make sense to me was the Gabe Miller kid, the outside back out of Oregon State.
Special teams is all I can think of on that pick.
Right, I didn't understand it simply because not a single scouting service had him rated as a draftable player.
We couldn't find a YouTube highlight of it.
Right.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch to, as far as the Missouri Tigers go, okay? With their football team and what we've been able to build, Tyler Gavitt's now left the University of Missouri. We have the confidence in James Franklin as Missouri fans. How do you feel about the Missouri Tigers coming into the 2011 season, and do you think they're going to be a contender this year? I mean, legitimately.
I think it's tough because I don't know if anyone in the Big 12, what used to be the Big 12 North, is going to be able to contend, at least right now. And I don't know a ton about, I haven't studied it so much about Missouri's quarterback situation, but the problem is now that you play Texas, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, Texas Tech every year,
in there,
I just feel like that for the next couple seasons,
it's gonna be
Texas and OU are going to be the top two. And you don't even have the opportunity to win your division and then be great for a game and win the Big 12 that way. You
like
got to
Kansas
win
State 03.
Right, okay. You know what I mean? You've got to win it legitimately, if you will.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, going to be very tough for anybody, not just Missouri, but Kansas or Kansas State or Iowa State or any of the former North teams.
Well, and that I was going to ask you about Kansas because, as much as we give them crap for, the Turner Gill hire, which didn't sound so bad at the time, but after a 3-9 season, which produced a loss to North Dakota State, in this new alignment where they do have to play Texas and Oklahoma, like you mentioned, how are they ever going to be able to compete in this new conference?
Well, and I don't know that Kansas is that worried about competing more. I think they're worried about, don't let the football team be an embarrassment. I think Kansas would take 7 wins every year.
Right.
Oh.
So you win 3 out of conference games.
Just staying competitive.
Right, and then go 4-5 in the conference. I think they would take that. I'm in the minority here. I like the Turner Gill hire because I think he's going to be able to recruit, and I think he's showing that a little bit already. But they're not going to be able to compete with Texas or Oklahoma. And the same thing with Kansas State. I mean, last year for Kansas State and Kansas was their chance if they wanted to do something simply because it was the last year of this alignment. And with the new alignment, I just think it's going to be very tough for anyone to compete with those two big schools down south.
I know you've got Oklahoma State and Texas A&M really playing well down there. But back to Missouri, they've been a program that's been able to beat the A&Ms. They have beat Oklahoma last year. They may have some momentum going into the season. Texas has been down. That would be the only way I can see Missouri getting into that.
Right, but they got to get they've done that with elite quarterbacks. You know what I mean? They've done that from starting with Brad Smith to Chase Daniel to Blaine Gabbert. I don't think they have that right now. Now, Pinkel maybe can bring one in, and then maybe they can compete with those programs again. But as far as Missouri long term, I think can compete. I don't think Kansas or Kansas State can compete long term. For this year, I don't think any of them.
And Iowa State, guys, Nick just told us the rumors are they still are. They have a team. They're going to have uniforms and everything. I think Nike's even made them. They still look like USC, but Iowa State will still be in the conference.
They will still. The
beyond that, we don't
be around.
Yeah.
The last question, and we'll stick to the Missouri Tigers here. The hiring of Frank Haith. How do you feel about that now that you've seen who he's been able to bring in as far as recruitment and how he's doing on the recruiting front?
Well, I mean, Mike Anderson left the cupboard pretty bare for this upcoming season. He got Todd Fuller from Louisville, who people swear by and say he is an excellent recruiter. So I think that's going to... I think it's way too early to judge it. I think next year, Missouri didn't really need a huge class because they have so many guys coming back. And I think the players will play hard for the guy. The players seem to like him. I mean, much like everyone, I wasn't wowed by the hire. But you've got to, I mean, I also wasn't someone that crushed the guy. I think you wait and see. I think you wait and see with Frank Haith. And with college sports, it's 80+% recruiting. And the rest coaching. So the question is, can he recruit? And hopefully he can.
Yeah. Well, Nick, we really appreciate you coming out today.
I appreciate
Nick Wright right here on the Sports Tour.
I always like the show. Thanks,
fellas.
Missed it by 3 months. I graduated from high school in spring of 2010. I got to fall. So I wasn't Syracuse without it. And I knew I wanted to go to Syracuse as a kid. And I always wanted to go
Here it is, a groove slightly transformed, just a bit of a break from the norm.
shoulder surgery.